What's up, guys? It's the Flamed Applesauce here, and I've got a different kind of video for you today. Now, I haven't done one like this, but I decided I would like to try it, and so yeah, we'll just go ahead and get into it. Before we get started, I would like to thank you all for watching, and I appreciate you being here. As we get started, I'd like to start off by saying thank you for watching. I don't want to offend anybody, or especially the family, by making this video, and I mean no disgrace or distaste or, anything negative about what I'm about to report on. So, you probably already seen the video title, and this is on Gary Plauche and his case. So, there's a popular YouTuber I watch. It's Wendigoon. He does a lot of video essays, and he inspired me to make this one, and I just wanted to go ahead and do it, because he always says, if you're going to do something, go ahead and make that video, make that song, do whatever. It's going to be bad, it's going to be cringe, but I'm not going to lie, I'm a lot nervous for this one. But anyways, with that out of the way, let's begin. After doing more research on Gary Plauche, I'm sad to say that I lost, the idolism of this man. When I first heard about him, he was this untouchable figure that I had heard about that was, the epitome of the greatest father ever. And before, just a quick note, I am going to say words that will upset a lot of people and talk about topics that are very rough. And if you can't handle it, then go ahead and click on another video. It won't hurt my feelings at all. But anyways, Gary Plauche's son, Jody, was sexually assaulted and kidnapped by his karate instructor, Jeffrey Doucet. I'm pretty sure that's how they say it, because it takes place in Baton Rouge, and it's spelled D-O-U-C-E-T, and then Gary's, the Plauche's family last name is P-L-A-U-C-H-E. It's kind of odd, but then again, my name's odd as well. But anyways, after Jeffrey was caught by the police and flown back to Baton Rouge, he was being walked out by police, and Gary was waiting for him. He didn't care to see his son's abuser go to trial. He would dispense justice by his own hand. Now, not much is known about Jeffrey's early life, but from what I could find, it was stated that he was one of 7 that was in his family, and he too was sexually abused. I couldn't find if any of his siblings were, or he had a longer history. There's really not too much information you could find on Jeffrey. But when he grew up, he became a children's karate instructor where he would start grooming children he taught in secret. To everyone else, Jeffrey was a well-rounded guy. The parents liked and respected him, and the kids loved his class. A lot of the kids had reported saying, that Jeffrey was their best friend. He taught them to respect their elders. He taught them that they were supposed to, be well-rounded individuals. The parents had him over, which was kind of odd. I don't know if stranger danger was a thing, and even so, he wasn't that much of a stranger because he was a karate instructor and everybody loved him. But it was reported that he'd take some of the kids and try and teach them how to drive, or take them for a ride here and there, which today sounds weird. I couldn't imagine letting my son just kind of hang out with a teacher or somebody else after class. It just doesn't sit right with me. Now, Jody was the main victim of Jeffrey's. Jody stated plainly that Jeff was his best friend. After months of classes, Jeffrey would start getting too close to Jody. Jody recalls Jeffrey would tell him that they needed to stretch, and he might accidentally touch Jody and brush it off as, "Oh, I just slipped." Or perhaps they would drive somewhere and he would put his hand in Jody's lap and say, "I didn't realize that was there. My bad." Finally, after about a year or so of grooming, Jeffrey would make his move, kidnapping Jody and raping him at the age of 11. Something to be noted is that the defense psychologist had reported that Jeffrey had the ability to sexually and psychologically manipulate others. So now we're going to go back in time a little bit, and we're going to go, I've got it kind of set up in a chronological order, but it's kind of wonky. This is my first time doing this, and it's going to be rough. I got to keep telling myself it's going to be rough. Now, the police found Jeffrey and Jody in LA after roughly a week. So, Jeffrey had kidnapped Jody, and they had left, and it took them about a week to find him. Now, while they were gone, Jeffrey had left a bunch of bad checks and a whole slew of different things. While they were on the road, Jody recalls that he was sexually assaulted. Now, because they left bad checks and whatever, I decided to do research and kind of figure out what the sentence it was for Jeffrey. A single bad check, according to the U.S. government, could get a sentence of 1 year and $1,000 fine, all the way up to 7 years and a $5,000 fine. It was reported that one store manager claimed Duce cashed a $7.5 thousand check made out to a supplier. So he probably was going to get the maximum. Now, with all of his crimes put together, one kidnapping, if the victim is under age 18 and the kidnapper is over the age of 18 and is not a close family member and or legal custodian, the kidnapping offense is punishable by a mandatory minimum sentence of 20 years in prison. It's also stated that if they cross over borders, if they cross across like state lines, then it automatically jumps up to a lifetime sentence. He also had at least one count of child rape, aggravated sexual abuse with children. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how to read this code, but it's 18 U.S. Code, whatever that symbol is, 2241C. Life imprisonment without parole or any term not less than 30 years. And at least one instance of using a bad check, he was looking at 2 life sentences with a couple years sprinkled in for flavor and possibly a pretty big fine. Now, after being collected by the police, Jeffrey was flown to Baton Rouge. And here's where the case becomes, something different. In the airport, Gary was waiting for Jeffrey to get off the plane and had the intent to make the decision of what justice would look like for Jeffrey. And at 9:08 on March 16th, 1984, Gary would murmur to his friend on the phone, "He's here," followed by, "You're going to hear a shot." And as news cameras were rolling, Gary would be seen in the background pulling at his .38 snub-nose revolver out of his boot and firing a single shot into Jeffrey's right ear, to which people reported it to be so perfectly shot, Jeffrey was dead before he hit the ground. However, I found a bunch of reports saying that he was put into a coma and he died like the next day or sometime in the next few days. But from where it said it hit him, which was right behind the ear, usually if a bullet goes through your brain, you're going to die on the spot. Shortly after firing, the police would tackle Gary, and it was none other than one of his good friends, and he would cry out, "Why, Gary, why?" And later that night in lockup, June would tell him, "You're going to hell, you know that?" And that was really odd to read that for the first time, because he had killed the man who was assaulting their son and had malicious plans. It didn't make too much sense to me that his wife was, being so, vindictive about it. And I talked to my wife, and she was like, "Yeah, if something like this happened with our son, I'd be behind you 100%. Just to let you guys know, my wife's the greatest." But here's where things get murky, and Gary loses that untouchable father figure role for me. So Gary and his wife June had hit a rough patch in their marriage, and Jeff started filling that hole. Gary was a jealous rager, and it was stated after a party, if someone winked at her or put their hand on her ass, he accused her of provoking it. Now that's weird. I guess it was just a different time that you go to a party and you and your wife would just be hanging out and some guy would smack her ass or something. That's just completely odd to me. I couldn't imagine going to a party, doing that to someone, or having it done to me or my wife. It just doesn't make any sense. But I guess it was just a different time. So they had hit a rough patch, and Gary had moved out. It was clear that a divorce was going to happen, and June looked to Jeff for companionship. when I first heard the story, I didn't know this. So Gary was this father who was... But now there's jealousy, tainted waters, and it's no longer just a man who wanted to defend his son. I fully believe he was only killed because he was trying to defend his son. But the new information that I found while researching, it left a bad taste in my mouth. All that aside, June says she felt stifled. She abandoned a potential career as a nightclub singer, and she was known for her ode to Billy Joel. And I scoured the internet, and I couldn't find any video of it. Now, the guy that I've got the research from that was stating about how Gary was angry, he also said he thought it was a jealous killing. He thought he killed Jeffrey because he was jealous that he was hanging out with his wife and family. But I really honestly believe it was because, perhaps the atrocities that were committed against his son was enough to push him over the edge. Now, towards the end, Gary would drop by and tell Jeff to stay away from his family and son because he heard from other parents about troubles they were having due to Jeffrey's classes. One parent said they were glad they had a girl. Now, Jeff's neighbor, Nippy Melancon, says that the charges were BS. She said he dated a girl at a trailer park. If Jeff was gay or funny, he wouldn't have been going out with no women. But things get interesting with some phone calls between Jeff and June. He warned June against telling anyone he'd called and ordered her to bring the other children and their school transcripts. Now, when I first read this, I thought he was talking about, having her kidnap all the kids in his karate class. It didn't click that it was June and Gary's kids. I was just dumb. June told him Gary might use this to get custody of all the children if you don't bring Jody back. If the court gives Gary the kids, I'll get them from him, Doucet fired back. I'm tired of people saying I'm insane, and if you say I am, you'll never hear from me again. It was only now that June realized Jeffrey was insane and she had made a mistake. So there is a chance the kidnapping was planned as an escape by June and Jeffrey from Gary to restart her life, and I believe that may have been the case. She, was in a bad marriage and she wanted a way out, and Jeffrey was that way. But him abusing Jody was entirely his idea. I couldn't imagine a mother being like, yeah, that's okay, go ahead and do that. And when he got caught on the way back, he told the police, I want to tell you all about it, and confessed to having sex with Jody and in all the gory details. He told the police everything. Now, I didn't get a full statement from it, and I couldn't find that, and honestly, I'm glad I didn't. I don't think I could handle reading that. Now, he also said that he admitted to other sex with other children in Baton Rouge. Lab tests from the boy's physical exam confirmed the account. So, the police examined him, and sadly, what Jeffrey had said was true. Now, during the trial, many people were interviewed. For example, the bartender. Obviously, Jeffrey didn't get to trial as he was murdered by Gary before he was able to be tried. Of course, after everything cooled down, Gary would be tried for killing Jeffrey. Now, Gary would plead no contest to the murder, which I had to look up and see what that means. It means that he accepts the charges but does not admit guilt to them. But honestly, when I first read that, it made me laugh. I was sitting here doing research, looking at the computer, completely silent. My wife was watching Bluey with my son, and I just started laughing hysterically at the screen because I just thought that was so funny, because this man was like, yeah, it was no contest to kill this guy. It was just too easy. So Gary spent a weekend in jail, and the judge later ruled him no threat to the community and gave him 5 years probation, 7 years on a suspended sentence, and 300 hours of community service. A little bit more than a slap on the wrist. It was more like a belt to the face. To be fair, Gary did kill someone. I mean, it doesn't matter that the guy was a piece of shit, nasty human being, but actions have consequences, and Gary was fully ready to accept and live with them. Now, he received this because the judge ruled that he was driven to a temporarily lethal state of psychosis. And attorney Anthony Marabella stated there is virtually no risk he will commit another crime, nor will incarceration serve any purpose. Nor will a probationary sentence deprecate the seriousness of a crime. Several witnesses declared that he was no murderer. He was a father who did it out of love and pride for his son. Now, during the trial, many people were interviewed. For example, the bartender that was working that morning in the airport, Linda Boyd, said if he was a homo, he got what he deserved. Now, raging homophobia aside, I agree. He deserved exactly what he got. Not because he was homo or whatever. It's because he's a pedophile and rapist. Another said, if it was my boys, I'd have shot him in the gut 3 or 4 times so he would have suffered. I want my boys to grow up to be men. Something like that could ruin them. Curry was interviewed and he told reporters he saved taxpayer dollars by blowing Jeff away. Now, it was the sheriff when interviewed stated that Jeff was just a classic pedophile. And they say that classic pedophiles, unlike rapists who do crime out of hate, they do it out of love. Which is absolutely disgusting and gives me the chills. But the most egregious quote comes from Robert Hester. He said, the dilemma is this. If we say what he did isn't wrong, do we open the door for the husband of a rape victim or the mother of a murdered child to do the same thing? Do we declare open season on child molesters, then rapists, then burglars? If the grand jury says, Gary, what you did is forgivable, what do we do about the next victim's revenge? Where do you draw the line? This is entirely insane quote. These are awful people. Yeah, it should be open season on child molesters and rapists. Maybe burglars is a little bit too far. Now, if they're in your house, that's my house. You've already declared by breaking into my home that you value my stuff more than your life, and your life is meaningless to me, essentially, as you're trying to steal my stuff. So that's on you. Now, a child molester or a rapist has damaged another person's mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Like, that's not something that you just get over. That takes a long time of, like, therapy and further reflection on yourself. It's just plain and simple. If that person deserves to die. But what gets me the most is that Jody didn't actually want Jeffrey dead. He reported that he just wanted him to stop. Which is, I asked my wife on that, and she said she could understand it. Now, after the case in 1997, just 13 years after it ended, Gary would go through the proper channels and ask the state pardon board to allow him to carry a gun again. Sadly, they declined his request, and then 14 years after that, in 2011, Gary would have a stroke, putting him in a nursing home where he would pass peacefully in 2014. Now, the family made plans around the LSU football game happening that Saturday, near where he died. And Jody stated that Gary would not want to interrupt the game. Now, Jody is still single and says he does not want any kids, which is understandable. He says he's not gay, he likes women. It's just that his cousin lost their 6-year-old and he didn't wish to feel that pain. With me being a father myself, my boy is younger than 1. But even so, if I lost him or someone hurt him, during the same interview, Jody states it's not right to take someone's life, but when someone is that bad a person, it doesn't bother you much in the long run. And while he was saying this, his mom was like, are you kidding? Do you know how many kids weren't molested because he's no longer on this earth? Which, yeah, I agree, you know. You've got this meme as well as this one. You know, those are pretty good memes. I like those. Now, Gary also stated, I shot him for the things he'd done to my son and a bunch of kids I found out later. I figured I was going to get the chair, but I knew that he wasn't going to fool with any kids anymore. And something so absolutely badass was one day, maybe a year after the murder, he and his son were walking along when they saw a man who looked strikingly like Doucet. Jody was trembling and wow, he said, I thought it was really him. Gary paused for a second, looked up, said plainly, I knew it wasn't. So now, to round everything off, I'd like to say I originally heard of this guy from iFunny. Yeah, I know, it's taboo and bad to be like, I use iFunny, whatever. It's a dumpster fire now anyways, it used to actually be funny. But I had first saw the raw, unedited footage of him executing Jeffrey. I thought it was like the dopest shit ever. I was in like heading home on the bus from, I think it was middle school, and this was the first I've heard of him. And it was like, wow, that's a really cool guy. I aspire to be like that as a dad. And I always thought, I'd hope I'd have the courage to do as he did and do what needed to be done. But after researching and learning more about the case and story, he wasn't a legendary guy. He had his flaws. Sadly, we live in the real world. There just aren't any heroes. But there are definitely bad guys, and Jeff was one of them. And Gary was just a dad who believed it was his duty to fix the problem, which I think puts him close enough to a hero as, you know, as need be. Now, it was kind of depressing doing the research on this, because I had always, for the past, like, I don't know, 4 years, 5, thought that this guy was super awesome and was just like the greatest dad ever, and you couldn't top him. But he's not, and I've, learned that it really doesn't matter what you've done. All we can do is hope to do the best. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. This one's probably, I enjoyed doing the research. I plan to do another one. I also kind of want to react to things, because I feel like that'll be fun. I've got horror, like internet horror tier list iceberg thing that's like for millennial horror or whatever. I don't remember. It's just a picture that I'm going to go off of and just kind of look up and see what everything is. I plan to be very scared. I don't do well with horror stuff. I'm sure you've seen the clip of me just absolutely shitting my pants because I was playing Resident Evil 7, and that sucked. I still have to finish the game. I probably won't, because I'm a little bitch baby, and that's a spooky game. But anyways, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, maybe like the video. If you enjoyed even more, subscribe. Hang around, turn on that notification, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace and chicken grease.